Before Charlie Kirk was killed, I had written and recorded this whole 15-minute video about how he sold his soul, he was a fraud. And then when he was killed, clips of him starting to get to the truth about the nation that must never be criticized and the people who falsely call themselves God's chosen people, those clips started to come out. And everyone who is critical of that nation had to take a step back and say, wait a minute, this guy was supposed to be their number one ally. What's going on here? And I realized that the video that I wrote about Charlie Kirk was fundamentally correct, but the tone was over the top and just not appropriate. Charlie actually was coming around to the truth of this topic. And I think a lot of people just didn't realize that, because once someone shows that they are willing to lie about this topic, it just becomes easy to ignore them about everything else. Like, okay, you're not going to be honest with me about this issue, so I can't listen to you on anything. So I'm going to re-record the video I initially recorded and just try to approach this topic with a little more humility and ultimately just trying to share what I believe to be the truth of this matter. A lot of people are approaching his assassination politically, but I think it's easier to understand what actually happened if you approach it from a spiritual perspective. Charlie's organization, Turning Point, was specifically funded by God's chosen people, who Charlie genuinely believed were his allies and his friends. They gave him his career. Now, this doesn't mean that he wasn't a smart guy. He was extremely smart. He was good at what he did, but what happened was they gave him the funding, and this is selling your soul. Because when you're trying to do political commentary, the kind of things that Charlie was trying to do, an important part of that is the truth. And his funders did not want him to discuss the truth about that topic. And in the West, in America, in evangelical Christianity, we are sort of propagandized into the whole Israel is our greatest ally mindset. That is the American religion. And Charlie was, I believe he was just fundamentally a good person. And he was very young when he started Turning Point, and he had these sort of demonic people around him, giving him money, taking him on all expenses paid trips to Israel. We're your friend, Charlie. We love you. You're great. We'll give you all this money. We'll give you a big platform. And he was a young kid. He's like, oh, this is great. Well, Israel is our greatest ally, and these people are obviously my friends, and they care about me because they tell me they care about me, and they give me money, and they take me on trips, and they're helping me run my company. So the goal of Turning Point, Charlie's organization, the goal was to funnel normie college Republicans into an intellectual ghetto that completely neuters them and leaves them defenseless and unable to recognize the grand arc of history. That's the purpose of Turning Point, and that's what they're still turning it into now that he has been taken out of the equation. Charlie got paid a lot of money to make sure that young white men don't ask too many questions that Charlie's shady employers don't want to answer. And it's not just white men. Look, I don't get into race that much here because it's not my topic. I'm not ashamed of being white. I'm proud of being white, but it's not my fight. I don't really care about it. If your thing is all 100% race all the time, you and I are on different courses. I care about the truth. So if white nationalists don't like that, look, I want you guys to have your ethno-state, but I'm not going to be a part of it. Anyway, that's a tangent. Turning Point, the goal of Turning Point was to keep people from asking questions like, Why did Israel bomb multiple Christian churches during their Gaza war? Why did they bomb a Christian hospital? Why did they bomb the USS Liberty and kill 34 American servicemen? Why did they employ and control Jeffrey Epstein's blackmail ring? And Charlie was a Christian. So for people on my side of the Israel thing, we are skeptical of a nation run exclusively by people who hate Jesus Christ and who think he is burning in excrement in hell. And that's kind of a weird contradiction for a Christian to hold in their brain. And this is what Charlie was raised in. It's what all or most American Christians are raised into. And so the reason that Charlie became the greatest ally of Israel is because of the process of selling your soul to the devil. And there are people who say, you can't sell your soul to the devil, it belongs to God. You can sell your soul. Now, you can get it back, but you can sell your soul. There are whole multi-step processes for doing it. All of your favorite celebrities have done it. They openly brag about it. Everyone in politics has done it as well. People do sell their souls. The people who run the media are not looking for the most talented actors. They're not looking for the smartest political commentators. They're not looking for the best singers. That's not how the media works. Hollywood and the news media are controlled by people who hate Charlie Kirk's Lord and Savior. My Lord and Savior. They hate Jesus Christ. That's the only religious figure who they hate. They don't hate Vishnu. They don't hate Zeus. They only hate Jesus Christ. So part of what I had written before Charlie was killed is that I bet he lays awake in bed some nights and thinks, what if I'm wrong? And then he wakes up and then time goes by. He checks his immediate talking points memo for the day that his handlers email to him. And then he gets on the air and he talks mostly about why Israel is our greatest ally. Now, of course, anyone who is paying attention to this kind of stuff has seen multiple clips of him actually starting to process this, the truth of this nation, the truth of his friends, and he was trying to figure out how to make that transition. And there are a lot of people who say that that's not what happened, and those people are wrong. This is what Charlie was doing. And that's why they took him out. Again, because when you sell your soul to the devil, you can get a lot of stuff. You can get money, you can get fame, you can get a nationwide political platform. But when you renege on that deal, then that's it. Then the deal is canceled and you're going to lose everything. A lot of people just lose their money, their nice houses, their nice cars. And other people like Charlie, they have to pay with their life. Selling your soul. It's a multi-step process, and it's not the same process for every single person, for every single celebrity or news commentator. It generally starts small and it ramps up. If you're a journalist or a political commentator, sometimes you get into that because you have this vague interest in the truth. You want to find out why things are the way they are, and you want to share that knowledge with people. So when you're in this sell your soul situation, you are faced with a moment where you have to ignore some topic. And a lot of them ignore many topics. So if you work for a mainstream news outlet, you have to keep your mouth shut about pharmaceuticals, for example. And you have to say things like, Jeff Steen McEffreys definitely unalived himself all alone in his cell that was specifically designed so you can't do that. You have to speak absurdities. And that we see that clearly now with people who say that Charlie Kirk had a magical spine that stopped a huge bullet. We're not even going to get into that. When you start gaining a following in political commentary, you will be approached by people in the conservative ink machine, and you'll get taken to dinners. At some point, you'll be given the option of an all-expenses-paid trip to Israel, and this isn't some random thing. This is how they keep you in line. It's how they start to control you in ways that young, naive guys like Charlie couldn't even recognize. And by the way, I don't think it's a sin to be young and a little dumb and naive. I don't think being dumb is a sin, and I don't think Machiavellian Christ haters should be allowed to manipulate and control naive political commentators like Charlie. If I were God, I wouldn't let the demons do that, but I'm not, and whatever. Let's move away from politics and talk about how selling your soul works for someone like a rapper. So, if you're a rapper, that is typically this macho thing. So, they try to make you do something that's very gay. You can hear rappers talk about this in interviews. They'll book a photo shoot at some remote location, and then you get there and there's all these Ferraris and McLarens. The message that they're sending you is like, look, this is what your life could be like if you go along with us. And it's often true. These are spiritual contracts that people willingly enter into. So when you sell your soul, it's often very lucrative. Your soul is valuable, and so when you sell it, you get something in exchange. It's a contract. It's a commercial exchange. But there is a price, because at some point in the photo shoot, someone will take you aside and say, "Look, we spent all this money on you. We spent a lot of money for this photo shoot, for this music video. We're spending a lot of money. You're going to be famous. You're going to be rich. Think about this celebrity. Think about that one." They'll start naming a bunch of famous people, and they're like, you're going to let me, you're going to let me put it in your booty, and then the mansion is yours. The cars are yours. Global tour promoting your music, hot tubs, girls, blah, blah, blah. Celebrity status is not built off of talent. It's built off of control, influence, power. It's the same with movie stars, musicians, and political commentators. It works the same way. So to be clear, I'm not saying Charlie Kirk got reamed. I don't think he was that far into it. But he did know that he would lose his money if he started asking questions about a couple issues that his friends and allies don't want people talking about. But he did it anyway. He ultimately was a good guy, and that's why he got taken out, because he was willing to renege on a bad deal that he should never have made. So a few weeks before Charlie was killed, there was this clip that went viral of some caller calling Charlie and saying, "Hey, why won't you debate Nick Fuentes?" And Nick's reaction to Charlie's death has been very enlightening. I think if there's anybody who is still on the Nick Fuentes train, you got to jump off. He is very clearly, his influence needs to be over after this situation. But anyway, so before this, back when in the pre-Kirk world, right? It was Nick Fuentes generally trying to get at the truth about Israel, and Charlie Kirk avoiding it. And so there was this clip where Charlie Kirk had this twitchy face reaction, you have deceit. How dare you ask me that question? And then his team deleted that video from the internet. And everybody who is critical of Israel thought that this was because Charlie was scared of what Nick would say. He made this deal with the devil, and so he would have his calls screened so that nobody could ask him about Nick Fuentes. And actually, I believe what was really going on is that he actually was getting to the truth of Israel, and he was just doing it in a smarter way than any of us understood at the time. And he was under more pressure than a lot of people realized, myself included. I had no idea. I thought he was just happy to go along with the Israel thing and just ignore it. And when he gets to heaven, hey, God, yeah, I lied about Israel, but sorry. So here's something I wrote before, this is what I wrote in the pre-Kirk world. Charlie has made a deal with the devil. It started at a low level with him just being asked to ignore a couple topics, and now if he talks about that issue, he will lose everything. If he talks about Epstein, he will lose everything. It's not that he trusts his friends in the government, it's that he was told to stop asking questions, and rather than being a man and saying, actually, no, there are important issues that no man should ever ignore, he just went along with it. And I'm going to keep going with what I wrote here. It's not particularly nice, but it's true. I've been going light on Charlie in most of this video because when the corruption started, it was subtle enough that he wouldn't know it was happening. But now he has to know what's up. That's why his face twitches when someone brings up Nick. So now let's get into sort of the details about why he had to be taken out. Because, we gave you this deal, Charlie, and we told you not to ask these questions, and now you're asking these questions. So let's put first things first. We should care about the truth above all else. Okay? Jesus Christ is the truth, and if that offends you, you're free to leave. You're free to keep watching, whatever. Jesus Christ is the truth. So if you are a believer in anyone other than Jesus Christ, if you believe in Zeus or Odin, sorry, but you're on the side of demons. So, since Jesus is the truth, this means we need to seek the truth no matter how uncomfortable it makes us, no matter what names they call us, and no matter the consequences. Second, political assassinations tend to be deep state. Think JFK, RFK, MLK, Malcolm X, Lincoln, and now Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was murdered for speaking the truth about Israel. If you believe that Tyler Robinson was the shooter, I humbly ask you to dig into the details a little bit more, okay? Because nothing about the official narrative makes any sense at all. It doesn't stand up to even the slightest, tiniest bit of scrutiny. Every single thing that they have told you about that killing is a lie. Okay, they faked the text message. The text message is not real. The bullet that they said the kid used could not possibly be the bullet. Anyway, just nothing about that story makes sense, and we need to look at the truth, okay? If you want to honor Charlie's legacy, you need to look at the truth. So I am going to give you the truth about his assassination. These are details that the media refuses to acknowledge. The FBI refuses to acknowledge this stuff. Now, recently they did kind of, we'll take a look at alternative theories. They're gonna lie to you. That's their job. That's why they won't pursue Epstein's clients, okay? The FBI hates you. The entire American political class hates you. And they are spitting on Charlie Kirk's legacy with every single thing that they do. And if you saw his funeral, there was some good speeches in there, but ultimately it was a Trump rally, which is just beyond disgusting. Now, if your first response to hearing somebody criticize Israel is to scream anti-Semite, then I need you to understand the following. I do not care about buzzwords invented by Marxists, and you shouldn't care either. I don't care about buzzwords, I care about the truth. Words like racist, sexist, homophobe, anti-Semite, these are all Marxist buzzwords designed and deployed to keep people from thinking and from having difficult conversations. I will always tell the truth about geopolitics and the spiritual war that we are fighting. If you take nothing else away from Charlie's death, let it be this: always tell the truth. If you're scared to tell the truth, you are denigrating Charlie's legacy. Okay, so we've been over this a little bit, but here's how the whole thing started. Charlie was Israel's biggest ally. He was their biggest supporter. They gave him his career, and he gave them unwavering loyalty. Almost unwavering, as we saw toward the end. Charlie was basically, for most of his career, a caricature of the right-wing American Zionist. This is why I never took him seriously. If your job is to talk about important issues and you are wrong about the most important issue facing the world, then you don't deserve my attention. When you lie about big things, you don't deserve my attention anymore. Okay, I don't think you deserve anyone's attention anymore. This is why people should stop listening to Nick Fuentes. He's openly lying to you about Charlie Kirk's assassination, so that needs to be the end. Charlie was beloved by naive boomers and by naive Gen Z college kids. His audience was normies who were just good people and who just wanted all the crazy stuff to stop. They didn't like the BLM riots. They didn't like drag queen story time. And they didn't like colleges becoming indoctrination centers. But they were unable or unwilling to keep asking questions about why those things exist in the first place. For most of Charlie's career, and he may not have realized it at the time, his role was to keep his audience from asking questions like, who are the intellectual architects of anti-white hatred? Who orchestrated the American military response to 9/11, and why did they orchestrate it the way they did? Who employed Jeffrey Epstein, and why did they do it? Who funds BLM? Who funds Antifa? Who wants open borders? Who funds cultural Marxism? So that was his role. And most people in political commentary and in American politics, that's their role as well. That's why they all take money from AIPAC. That's why they all visit Israel and kiss the wall. But despite my misgivings, Charlie ultimately did have some principles. He started noticing patterns. In America, it's illegal to notice patterns because once you start noticing them, you cannot stop. So let's go back to the questions I asked above, like who are the intellectual architects? There are many similar questions we could ask, but let's hear what Charlie says.
And Jewish donors, they have a lot of explaining to do, a lot of decoupling to do, because Jewish donors have been the number one funding mechanism of radical, open border, neoliberal, quasi-Marxist policies, cultural institutions, and nonprofits. This is a beast created by secular Jews. And now it's coming for Jews, and they're like, what on earth happened? And it's not just the colleges. It's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it. It's like time for you guys to wake up and say no more, draw a line in the sand. Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. Now, I don't like generalizations. Not every Jewish person believes that. But it is true, the Anti-Defamation League was part and parcel with Black Lives Matter. It is true that some of the largest financiers of left-wing anti-white causes have been Jewish Americans. They went all in on woke, and it wasn't just ADL. It was some of the top Jewish organizations in the country that have done that. In fact, we have seen this with the recent retreat of Jewish donations that are no longer going to be administered to colleges, right? Mark Rowan, Leon Copperman. Can we get that full list? It's very powerful. The part of the, so that's totally true. And by the way, Tucker Carlson reinforces this. So I'm going to it was quite a day on the internet. Tucker Carlson was interviewing Candace Owens. We have Candace Owens coming up next hour. And Tucker Carlson mentions that Jewish Americans have primarily been financing cultural Marxist ideas. We said this, by the way, last week, and people came after us.
We were on top of it.
We actually said it in a different way. We said, I'm glad that Jewish Americans are reconsidering their financing of cultural Marxism. And people misunderstood it intentionally and slandered us as being anti-Semites. But listen to this. Tucker Carlson is completely correct by saying this, that the philosophical foundation of anti-whiteness has been largely financed by Jewish donors in the country.
Okay, so Charlie's funders, the people who controlled his organization, they did not like that.
We're just going to try to, we're going to just stamp out everything type of practice, but it goes to the point where if, for example, if I have less ability sometimes online to criticize the Israeli government without backlash than actual Israelis do. And that's really, really weird, isn't it, Megan? That's not so right.
Wrong-headed. I'll tell you, this, for me, so I got some blowback after saying Mossad possibilities with Epstein, a comment behind which I stand. I mean, I realize, and I've, of course, reported what Alan Dershowitz has said as his lawyer. He says, I think he would have told me. He didn't say he had any of those connections. I hear all that. That doesn't mean it's not true. I think all these things should be explored. It's one of the many things that should be explored around Epstein. But saying that, and also saying he might be a U.S. asset, et cetera, doesn't make you anti-Semitic.
So Charlie started taking a lot of heat for the questions that he was asking. It got to the point where he began to fear for his life. He thought Israel would kill him for what he was saying. So why would they threaten him like this? Why would his friends and allies treat him this way? Because as the Bible says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. Charlie Kirk made a deal with the devil, and when you make a deal with the devil, you can make a lot of money. That's why people do it. But if you renege on the deal, there are consequences. You will lose everything. They gave Charlie his platform, and they do this with everybody. Here is a picture of Charlie at the Wailing Wall. Every politician has to do this as well. Everybody who goes into politics gets offered this deal to come to Israel. We're your friend. We'll give you money. So if you make a deal with them, they will give you a career. They will give you immense funding. And they gave Charlie a career. But there was one inviolable condition: never criticize Israel. Never criticize God's chosen people. I'm sure it seemed like a good deal to Charlie. Something like, I'm going to get this awesome career talking about politics. I get to run a nationwide organization. And yes, it's unfortunate that I can't talk about Israel, but I'm not a Nazi. The only people who ask those questions are just big meanies. Schindler's List made me cry. And doesn't the Bible say those who bless Israel will be blessed? So, all right, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut about this one issue, and I hope that Christ can have mercy on my soul. So Charlie got his career, and at first it was easy for him to ignore the crimes of our greatest ally. But, in the last few years, Israel has been going completely off the rails insane. Nobody with a functioning brain can ignore the evil things they have been doing. And for all of my criticisms of Charlie, he ultimately did have a conscience, and it cost him his life. Everybody who is remotely plugged into reality knows that Israel allowed October 7 to happen. Even Gavin McInnes knows this. He's the only person who worships Israel more than Charlie did. But look, if that had been the only thing that Charlie had said about Israel, they could have let it go. They'll give you a little bit of leeway. But he didn't stop. Charlie continues having dangerous opinions.
And one thing a friend said to me, interestingly, which is, okay, Charlie, we've pushed back against the media on COVID, on lockdowns, on Ukraine, on the border, it's like, maybe we should also ask a question. Is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question, that maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media says, because I know I've been conditioned to ask a lot more critical questions over the last couple of years. So, Ben, some people would accuse Israel of wanting to ethnically cleanse. Some people in the Israeli government are saying, again, it's all over the place, right? You have opinions all over. In your opinion, what would a good outcome 5 years from now be, and how does one respond to the claims of ethnic cleansing?
So Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin were in a panic.
You and I, have people who we thought were conservatives sound a lot like the Marxist Islamists who were attending this event last week, don't they?
I think it's exactly right. Unfortunately, there's a grievance culture that has become the dominant strain on the left that says that all people in the world who are poor, who have bad lives, that is the fault of the West, that is the fault of Israel, it's the fault of capitalism, it's the fault of the Jews, it's the fault of anyone except for themselves. They have no agency, and thus all the systems must be torn down from the rooftops all the way down to the ground. And you see that sort of mirrored on a weird horseshoe part of the right that is now arguing sort of the same thing, that the problems that people have are intractable, that there's a shadowy group that's manipulating all of this, that America actually was never great. America was wrong in World War II. America never landed on the moon. And these kind of two forces are now bizarrely joining hands in the middle. It's very strange.
Do you think there's enough of an effort to push back? I find that conservative groups and conservative organizations that have these weekend events and these seminars, whether they're for young people or think tanks or that sort of thing, they sort of sprinkle these events with these kooks. They sprinkle these events with these American haters who claim to be American firsters and are fake MAGA and even stab the president in the back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an attempt by some of these organizations to, quote unquote, maintain the big tent. But the reality is that, as many have said, the problem with a big tent is that you may end up with many, many clowns inside. And the most fundamental thing is that just because you're saying somebody votes Republican, that does not mean that they ought to be the preacher at the front of the church. They're not the person who ought to be leading the movement if they are spending all day criticizing the president of the United States as covering up a Mossad rape ring or being a tool of the Israelis for hitting an Iranian nuclear facility, a thing he has said literally his entire career that he was going to do. And so it seems to me that if we are to hold anything in sort of reverence, it ought to be the fundamental tenets of the American Republic, which I believe to reside in conservatism. And if conservative organizations are simply going to give up the ghost on that in order to maintain a sort of pseudo coalition, that is a gigantic moral and political mistake.
Charlie started following dangerous people. Here he is following Syrian girl on Twitter. And the attacks against Charlie ramped up.
The way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite.
It's been so unfair. They were coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith isn't allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. My moral character is now being put into question, Megan. Not my decisions, not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this.
It's like there's some rule. You can't go there when it comes to Israel.
Well, you and I believe that we're Americans and Americans first, period. End of story. We are citizens of this nation, okay?
That's right.
Israel, we have funded, we have supported. I host a person that I moderate the debate of, mind you, right? And I give equal time to Josh Hammer, equal time to a pro-Israel advocate.
Now notice he said, they're calling me an anti-Semite. They're calling me an anti-Semite. This dude was the biggest shill for Israel in American history, apart from, maybe Donald Trump. And now they're calling him an anti-Semite. All right, this is how off the walls bonkers they are. So look at this. If Charlie Kirk remains the head of TPUSA, the right has an anti-Semite problem that will follow them into the coming elections. All right, so we start telling the truth about you, and now we're anti-Semites. Anti-Semite is the most powerful word in the English language. If you disagree, please go try to tell the truth to your family about Israel. Your facts will be ignored, and they will ask you, don't you just hate the Jews? That's really what's behind this. Americans worship the chosen people more than they worship Christ, more than they worship the truth. And until recently, Charlie was one of them. He said, I'm going to trust my friends in the government on Epstein. But at some point, we have to give credit where it's due. At some point, he realized he needed to be faithful to Christ and to the truth. He exposed the fact to his audience that Epstein was Mossad.
That Epstein, with his little friend Ghislaine and Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, who was obviously a spy of the Israeli intelligence agencies, that there was something else going on here. Epstein was not some sort of whiz kid hedge fund manager. Epstein was playing a part. Epstein was a LARPer. Epstein was cast for a specific role, and he played it really well. The sweatpants and the Harvard jacket, the kind of disheveled hair, looking as if he was so smart and above the clouds that he was doing advanced mathematic equations on the back of napkins. But if you actually go into some of the videos of people that met with Epstein at the time, they said he was awfully unimpressive when it came to finance and markets and economics. And it's nothing new that if you're in the intel agencies, you want to try and get as much blackmail on powerful people as possible. Easy, not hard. And this is no longer just speculation. First of all, the evidence that shows that Epstein was a creation of either Mossad, Israeli intelligence, American intelligence, Saudi intelligence, or maybe he was just a hired gun. Maybe he was just the guy that countries would go to and park a couple $100 million and say, hey, can you get one of the members of the royal family with a 13-year-old so we can get them to do what we want to do? Members of Congress are actively being blackmailed. The Epstein playbook is being used on a daily basis. Jeffrey Epstein was not a financier. He was not a hedge fund manager. Jeffrey Epstein was a key player in a multi-decade blackmail operation against the most powerful people on the planet.
I mean, we all knew this before 2020 probably, but he was on his own timeline and his normie audience was on their own timeline as well. So we will give them space to come to these conclusions, even though it's glacially slow. I wish you guys could speed it up a little bit. So, normies, if Charlie Kirk can say that Epstein was Mossad, you can say it too. When I said it, I was some evil monster who just hates God's chosen people. But if Charlie says it, suddenly the normies will take it seriously. I don't know why it works that way, but it does. Charlie also started telling the truth about Iran. Like, this is not our fight. We need to put America first, not Israel.
We put them in power. We displaced the Shah. We displaced the democratically elected leader Mossadegh and put in the Shah, which then, of course, led to the Ayatollahs of Iran. And then finally, is a nuclear weapon against Iran a threat to America? Probably could be. It's a threat to Israel, but is it a threat to America? I mean, India has nuclear weapons. Pakistan has nuclear weapons. So is it worth a potential another war with Iran? And the people that are, let's just say, advocates for preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon by all means necessary, they're the same architects that were perfectly fine with the Iraq War, the same designers of the Iraq War. The primary way Iran can hurt this country is by sucking us into another Middle East quagmire, and they know it. And Iran would have the potential to be the worst Middle East quagmire of all time. Iran has 90 million people. That's more than 3 times as big as Iraq was when we invaded 22 years ago. It's larger than both Afghanistan and Iraq combined, both in population and in area. Iraq was at least mostly a flat country. It's a bunch of cities along a couple rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. Iran isn't like that. It's almost all mountains. Iran has spent decades preparing specifically for war with the United States. Their military has lots of weapons designed for fighting a much stronger adversary. They have a lot of drones, a lot of speedboats, a lot of cheap, expendable weapons. They're far more formidable than Iraq or the Taliban were. And I seriously want your thoughts. Email me, freedom@charliekirk.com. Would you say it's a good idea to use military force to strike potential Iranian nuclear targets? My whole life, I've been told that Iran is getting a bomb. Iran is getting a bomb. Iran is getting a bomb. Iran is getting a nuclear bomb. And yet here in 2025, they do not have a nuclear bomb. So why should we trust the American intelligence without verifying it? Now, the other side of the argument is, Iran is this big threat. Same people that told us that Iraq was a big threat, the same people that told us the Taliban was a big threat. I'll be honest, fine. I mean, I don't like Iran, but the evidence shows that every single one of these people, the last couple of decades, that is pushing for a conflict with Iran has not just failed miserably, has been one of the greatest catastrophes in American foreign policy ever. Thousands of lives needlessly lost of Americans, millions of people displaced, trillions of dollars spent. And let's be honest, at this particular moment, we cannot afford this war. We are economically vulnerable. There is massive de-dollarization happening. We're trying a difficult manufacturing pivot with tariffs. We've seen the rise of the Chinese Communist Party. We blew our military reserves in Ukraine. And now is the time that all of a sudden we want to try to get involved in another endless conflict. Let me be clear. It will not end with just military strikes. If you strike Iran on the interior, you will have a war. That is an act of war. And if that's what you want, that's fine. Make your case.
Notice how at no point in any of these clips does Charlie say, I hate Israel, I hate the Jews. He considered himself their ally. He honestly thought that they were his friends. God bless you, Charlie. You were not cynical enough to understand the full implications of what you had begun to say, and I suppose that speaks well of you. Charlie began seeing Benjamin Netanyahu for what he really was. So the highlighted portion there says, Kirk was disgusted by what he witnessed inside the Trump administration, where Netanyahu sought to personally dictate the president's personnel decisions, and he weaponized Israeli assets like billionaire donor Miriam Adelson to keep the White House firmly under its thumb. Here's the next one. Netanyahu personally requested Charlie Kirk visit Israel 2 weeks before his assassination. Kirk denied the request. That's important. Keep that in mind. He denied Netanyahu's request to visit Israel and to give him $150 million. According to a longtime friend, Charlie Kirk had refused a funding offer from Netanyahu in his final days, having come to see him as a bully who sought to drag America into foreign entanglements. Thank you, Charlie, for arriving at the truth and for slowly sharing this with your audience. When Kirk personally cautioned President Trump against striking Iran, Trump barked at him and shut down the conversation. Kirk was frightened by the response from Jewish leaders and stakeholders to his tentative opposition to intervention in Iran. And then after hosting Dave Smith, Megyn Kelly, and Tucker Carlson at TPUSA, he was swamped by angry text messages from Zionist donors. We're just putting more pieces of the puzzle together. A lot of people want to ignore these, but when you understand how selling your soul works, and when you understand how selling your soul works when you also have a conscience, like at first I was naive and I made this deal I didn't understand, but I'm a Christian and I'm going to pursue the truth and I'm going to share it. When you are spiritually awake, you can understand these things. People who are spiritually dead will just go along with what the government tells them. Oh yeah, Charlie had a magic spine that stopped a 30-06 and saved the people behind him. Were there any people behind him? Who knows? Probably not. But he had a magic spine. It's a miracle, guys. So don't ask any more questions, because if you ask any more questions about this miracle, you're going to hell. Right? That's how the spiritually dead portion of Christianity thinks. So he denied Netanyahu's request to come to Israel and to take the $150 million of hush money, as in, like, I'll give you this money and you get back on the plantation and you keep your people here because you are a very powerful and influential voice in American politics and you got there because of the money we gave you. So be a good boy, take this money. This is the carrot. So take the carrot, otherwise it's the stick. And of course we know Charlie, he denied to take the carrot. He said, no, I don't want the carrot actually. You're going to have to kill me. Make me a martyr. People in the media are scared to talk about Israel. Charlie himself was scared, but he was a better Christian than the rest of them. He was for damn sure a better Christian than Nick Fuentes. And if you disagree with me, I don't want you to watch my videos. Go away. Charlie knew that he could not ignore the truth anymore. So notice the date of the video I'm going to show you next, August 7, 2025. If you want to watch the whole thing, I'll give you a link to my Substack. I'm not going to play the whole clip here. It's like 7 minutes. This clip talks about the fear felt by news anchors regarding Israel.
And you'll see this as we go through some of these videos. There's this like permanent condition of fear. There's an underlying sense, especially amongst like the Charlie Kirks of the sector. I guess walking on eggshells would be a way of putting it, but more like walking through a minefield. That they're so scared of saying the wrong thing. They're so scared of stepping on a landmine, of expressing something in not quite the correct way and having their lives destroyed for it. And that's a deliberately fostered condition. That's because they've been threatened or because the threat is implicit. that there is no let the punishment fit the crime when it comes to certain topics. If you step on the landmine, you die, right? So that's how they act. And they act like they're really carefully stepping around a bunch of bombs. And it's just sad and pathetic because they know the truth and they just won't say the truth. They've created you. They've given you an incredibly powerful platform because you served their interests. And now they're threatening to take that platform away if you don't continue to serve their interests. They can't take the platform away, Charlie Kirk. It's yours. You can do whatever you want with it. And if you want to tell the truth about Israel, you should tell the truth about Israel. You should be brave and not a coward.
So again, that's August 7th. That's more than a month before Charlie was killed. And at the end of that clip, Harrison, the anchor, says, "Just tell the truth about Israel, Charlie, and everything will be all right." Look, I like Harrison. He's a great commentator. He's kind of the guy who blew this whole thing up in the first place. Without his tweet, it would have been a little 10% more difficult to, maybe 25% more difficult to like truly, oh, actually this was Israel, you know? But anyway, you have to be spiritually naive to say, just tell the truth about Israel and everything will be... No, actually, everything won't be all right. Like, Christ told the truth and everything was not all right. He got crucified for it. When you tell the truth, there are consequences. Your ability and willingness to tell the truth, even though you will face those consequences, that's what makes you a Christian. I mean, that's not what makes you a Christian, but that is extremely important as a Christian, and that is what Charlie did. He knew there would be consequences, and he went out and told the truth anyway. Doing it in a sort of slow manner to try to keep the people who he honestly thought were his allies on his side and be like, look, I want you guys to defend yourselves and all this stuff, but we have to talk about the truth. Oof. That's a man. He is a man. And on this channel, I don't allow any Charlie Kirk slander. So any leftists who are happy that Charlie's dead, you're getting banned. Any right-wingers who want to come in here, he was always an Israel shill until the day he died. He's not our guy. Okay, well, I'm not your guy either. Go away. You don't care about the truth. You're probably a pagan anyway. We're not on the same side, bro. So, but anyway, when you make the kind of deal that Charlie made and then you violate that spiritual contract, you will pay. Some people only lose their money and influence, others lose their lives. So as for the shooter, frankly, I am surprised that the FBI didn't pin this on a Groyper, one of the Nick Fuentes followers, but I suppose the reason they didn't do that is because of the way Nick is now being a good boy and going along with the narrative. What I'm saying is, I bet that the shooter would be described by the FBI as a follower of Nick Fuentes if he didn't go along with the narrative. And I'm sorry, Nick, but this is like Trump in the 2020 election. Like, you got put on the Rubicon, so if you don't cross it, then we can't take you seriously anymore. Charlie Kirk crossed it. Trump didn't. Nick Fuentes didn't. If you don't understand why this is important, I can't help you. I know this is a really sad episode, but do you remember the time that the FBI said or it was Mike Johnson, he said that Trump was actually an FBI informant working to bring down Epstein? Imagine being stupid enough to believe that. But that is the level of lie that the government will give you. I don't know if they honestly think we're stupid enough to buy that or if they just don't care. Like, sometimes I think they just like putting it in our face. Like, hey, you idiots, look, we're lying to you. We want you to know that we're lying to you. We know that you know that we're lying and we're still lying. And what are you going to do about it? You're not going to do anything, are you? And sure, maybe we won't do anything, but we're going to heaven and you're not. On the initial day that Charlie got shot, I think a lot of people were immediately on like, oh, this was probably a leftist. But then as the hours went on, as the days went on, it became impossible to ignore that, no, this was not some idiot leftist. Like, this is a next level assassination. And people, these idiots and disingenuous people who say, where's the evidence? Okay. Why would professional hitmen leave evidence for you to find? Where's the evidence? And people say this, where's the evidence thing, because normies just believe whatever the magic TV box tells them. Normies got the vax. Normies think a racist cop killed George Floyd. Normies think Biden won the 2020 election. Normies think we should just move on from the Epstein case. Normies think Trump is on their side, so we don't listen to their opinion. The left had 8 years to kill Charlie, and they did nothing. Charlie was fine in all of these public appearances until he started criticizing our greatest ally and the people who gave him his career. Not a single shred of credible evidence supports the Tyler Robinson theory, and every shred of context points directly to Israel being the culprit. Notice this man, George Zinn, he created a distraction, allowing the the real culprits to get away, not Tyler Robinson. That's not the real guy. He was saying, shoot me, I reserve the right to remain silent. So this was a chosen man serving as a distraction. So if the shooter was just a lone gunman, what's with this guy? Why did they let him go right away? And why are none of these shills talking about him? Because engineered incompetence. A lot of people were talking about a guy in a baseball hat behind Charlie making what looked like hand signals. And that is, I believe that's false. I believe the guy who came out and said that's him, Frank Turek. I don't think he was part of the team, right? But it doesn't matter whether he was in on it or not. The context is what we need to focus on, the greater context. Because there is no credible evidence at all in this other than Charlie's dead. Oh, by the way, if you believe he's not dead, I'm 1% willing to entertain that. If you don't think that people are evil enough to kill someone in front of thousands of people, in front of the whole world, I'm sorry, but you're naive. Like, it's easier to just kill Charlie than to do this whole coordinated thing where, okay, we're going to pretend to kill you, but we're actually going to sneak you out the back. Like, no, actually, this guy is going against our narrative. He's reneging on the deal that we gave him. Let's just cut him out. Charlie's assassination is an IQ test. And if you fell for the government narrative, there is still time for you to come back to reality. Remember everything else they lied about. J6, the Hunter laptop. Russia hacked our election. There's nothing weird at all with Hillary Clinton's emails. 9/11, they just keep lying about all this stuff all the time, just constant lies. But now, suddenly, magically, they're telling the truth. The Israeli media was the first to announce Charlie's death. Netanyahu tweeted about Charlie Kirk's death before Trump did. And this is because Netanyahu had an agent inside the hospital to confirm Charlie Kirk's death. That's how General Patton's assassination happened as well. Patton would have survived his car crash injury, but there was an agent at the hospital to put him down. This is how hits work. You have to make sure the guy is gone. This isn't some Jason Bourne bullshit where just one guy on a yacht, oops, I didn't kill him, whoopsie doodle. Israel went on this global tour talking about, we did not kill Charlie Kirk, definitely not. So the one area where we can give the Charlie Kirk didn't die, the one place where we can give that theory a tiny bit of credence is in the fact that the suspect was arrested 33 hours after, right? 33, that's a number that they like to throw around to communicate with each other. The people behind Charlie's assassination are they are Satanists, right? 33 is a sacred number to them, and as far as I understand it, it's like them mocking Jesus because he was crucified at 33 years old, right? So 33 is like ha ha ha, 33. And it's interesting to see the media figures that have been on board with the completely insane government narrative. Alex Jones is on board with it. Nick Fuentes is on board with it. And I think we know why that is. So Alex Jones and Nick, they are playing along like good little doggies. There's too much weird stuff going along with this shooting. You cannot swallow the narrative. How many COVIDs do we have to live through before people wake up and accept the fact that they're lying about everything? So now the aftermath of the Kirk thing, if you question the narrative, you're now an anti-Semite, right? But you have to ask yourself this: do I care more about the truth or about buzzwords? Most Americans care more about not being called buzzwords. And who are the intellectual architects of those buzzwords? Well, if you answer that, you're going to get called a buzzword. Funny how that works. And they're making Charlie's legacy into "thou shalt support Israel." And then check out this disgusting AI-generated photo that Trump posted right after Charlie died. God, like they're just shoving it in your face. They want you to think you're powerless. So why would Israel do this now? They are at the end of their leash. Like this is it for them. Israel has no organic allies left. Evangelical Christians are the only people left on earth who still buy that country's bullshit. And all of those people worship Charlie Kirk. He was their guy. Evangelicals loved Charlie Kirk. They watched all his shows. So if Charlie brings his legion of normies, his huge legion of normies, into an alliance with someone who questions Israel, if he brings them away from Israel, that's the end of them. They will lose their only remaining non-blackmailed allies. Charlie was the last guy. He was the only one who wasn't blackmailed. He was astroturfed, right? But he wasn't blackmailed. He wasn't friends with Jeffrey Epstein like Trump is. Charlie Kirk betraying Israel would be an extinction level event for them. So we have to take him out before he's able to continue asking dangerous questions that make Ben Shapiro raise his eyebrows and give the death stare. If your favorite political commentators are not hammering this issue, they are either compromised or they're too naive to listen to ever again. And his shooting was a distraction. You know what else happened the day he was killed? The Senate voted against releasing the Epstein files. Tell me again which nation ran Epstein's pedophile blackmail ring? Charlie knew the answer. It took him a while, but that's okay. He did figure it out. All of the Democrats voted to release the files, and nearly all Republicans voted against it. So if you think Republicans are on your side, you're wrong. And in case there are any drooling idiots watching this, no, I'm not a Democrat. Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk to distract you from the fact that the Israeli-controlled American Senate voted against releasing information about an Israeli pedophile blackmail ring. And by the way, our politicians also did this while you were distracted by the lone gunman who killed Charlie Kirk. There's Lauren Buba, who just passed a bill punishing politically motivated boycotts of Israel. They are pulling all kinds of evil shit while we are distracted by the magic TV box telling us that leftists killed Charlie Kirk and now the left and the right have to fight again, just as they were starting to come together on the one issue that is super dangerous to the people who astroturfed Charlie Kirk. So let's go along with this. Let's say, yeah, you know what? A leftist actually did kill Charlie. Who are the intellectual architects of the modern left? Charlie knew the answer, and it cost him his life. Charlie was martyred because he told the truth about satanic forces. Charlie is a Christian martyr. He made a deal with the devil when he was too young to know what he was doing, but he knew that he could not ignore the truth. Despite all my criticisms of him, ultimately this is what I will remember most. He did the right thing despite intense backlash from people who he considered friends and allies. He was led astray by a heretical 19th century doctrine that teaches those who bless Israel will be blessed, but he stayed committed to the truth. Charlie knew he could be killed for speaking out about Israel, but he did it anyway. That's a fucking man. And everybody else, all the shit tier pundits like Jesse Waters, who want to tell you it was a deranged lone gunman who killed Charlie, Nick Fuentes, Alex Jones, they are lying to you. They are lying deliberately. They hate you. They hate Christ. None of them will ever be half the man Charlie was. None of them are willing to die for the truth. And that's what Christendom needs now. We need men like Charlie who tell the truth no matter the cost. Israel killed Charlie Kirk because he told the truth about them. If you look away from this issue because it makes you uncomfortable, you are a coward. If you liked Charlie Kirk, you must demand to know the truth about who killed him and why. This is the most important thing to happen in America in decades. Do not continue believing the lies that the mainstream media gives you. Conservative Inc. hates you. Fox News hates you. Israel hates you. We are in a spiritual war. Put on the armor of Christ and fight like Charlie did. Fight for the truth. God bless you, Charlie. Thank you for proving me wrong. I hope I can apologize to you in the afterlife. In the meantime, enjoy your eternal reward. You have earned it.